The next morning, in an aircraft zooming into mid-air, several young lads in their military uniforms sat buckled in their safety equipment, heading towards Base 2. Sean is one of them. Within the main control room of the base stood Heine Burton, staring at the holographic image in silence until the screen of the aircraft was switched to the next. If he's too weak, I will teach him to be stronger. Meanwhile, Sean was leaning against the aircraft window. Beneath them were blocks of buildings that were left abandoned for hundreds of years, lifeless and obsoleted. The cement had crumbled from the perennial weathering, leaving only its long steel bars that pierce up high into the sky like a ballet of blades. One of the deserted skyscrapers collapsed from the vibration of the engine as the aircraft soared by. Sean stared at the sight, eyes widen. He couldn't help but imagine the prosperity of all humans living in Charles would have had if there hasn't been the invasion of comet virus. The city lights that cover the land like the great ocean, the hovering cars that glide across the buildings swiftly, and an unrestricted vast space to thrive further. Sean. Aren't you afraid? Afraid of what? Sean's face was filled with excitement. Your aircraft crashed on your first trip away from Charles and you're the only one who survived. What if the tides infiltrate into our aircraft control system again? But then the aircraft will crash. And then. The deserted streets were overrun with those infected with comet virus, wandering around mindlessly. All of a sudden, they swarmed over to the tallest building like a troop of ants the moment they caught a glance of the hovering aircraft, arms stretching towards the sky and hoped to drag everything they could down into the living hell. It was too far to have a clear view of the menacing look on their face, but it was not hard for them to imagine. And then we will be torn apart and devoured by them, leaving not even a trace of flesh or blood. We won't be as lucky all the time to have the special force soldiers to come to our rescue in time, right? Sean clutched Lily's arm and winked. If you're scared, we can do something else to divert your attention. Lily, the classmate and the dream girl of Sean. Sean has been fantasizing her ever since they met, as though she was his only oasis within his dry and boring student life. Though his best buddy Casey, the all-time genius in the Science Academy, absolutely despises his taste for women. Now, he's finally got the chance to board the same aircraft with Lily. Lily's palms were covered in cold sweat. It seems that the recent news about the frequent plane crash has put her on edge. Let's have a kiss. The more passionate the better. That will put your mind off all the worries about plane crashes. Sean's eyes narrowed and his mouth lifted to an ambiguous smile. Lily let out a sigh. Sean. Perhaps you won't have the need to join this mission if only you would spend half of your effort in dry jokes onto something useful. Really? But don't you think we should grasp the reality before we could discover what we truly wish for? Don't worry, Lily. The pilots of this aircraft are our seniors with the rank of a captain. I bet they're well experienced in defending the interrupters. It won't be an easy task to infiltrate their mind. An apprentice sitting beside them tried to reassure Lily and rolled his eyes at Sean. At last, they left the sea of ruins and the scattered buildings are gradually replaced with a vast horizon of a forest. How beautiful, Sean sighed in awe. He recalled the leaf that he picked up that day. It was so green and lively that he just couldn't bring himself to place it into the specimen container, but when he woke up the next morning, the leaf has wilted into yellowish brown, and crumbled into pieces in one small touch. Beautiful? Lily stared at him as if he is an eccentric. After the comet virus has wreaked havoc on Earth, who knows if there are any pitfalls lying beneath such beauty. Good thing I didn't kiss you just now, otherwise I'd have become an idiot like you. Sean shrugged off lightly. He knows, even without the havoc caused by comet virus, the Mother Earth is filled with mysteries and myriads of changes, and that she will unveil her menacing jaws during her most endearing moment at any time. Perhaps his intuition was sharpened from all the life and death experiences he had been through. Sean had a feeling that this trip will not go well. Suddenly, the aircraft gave an abrupt jolt. The apprentices in the cabin let out a surprising yelp while clutching onto their armrest tightly. Don't worry. It's probably the turbulence. The apprentice that mocked Sean seconds ago said in self-assurance, his face as pale as ghost. Sean narrowed his eyes in thought. We're flying at low altitude, it can't be turbulence. After going through 2 aircraft incidents caused by the interrupter's infiltration, Sean felt this a bad omen. Before he could think further, the left wing of the aircraft began to incline as everyone screamed in astonishment. And the announcement that rang across the cabin increased their anxiety. Warning! Warning! Engine failure on the left wing. Warning! Warning! Engine failure on the left wing. What's happening? Lily asked in a strained voice. The right wing engine is now the only thing that is keeping the aircraft hovering in the air. Then there was another announcement. It was the pilot calling for help from the cockpit. Somebody, get in here and help. We've encountered the infiltration from the interrupter. Captain John's down. All of them was pale and stricken. What? The interrupter? Sean closed his eyes, his heart turns cold. As I thought. It's the interrupter again. Is Captain John trapped? Is he never going to regain consciousness? The apprentices fell into discussions, yet no one took action to proceed over to the cockpit. What are you guys waiting for? I can't hold on any longer. The only remaining pilot bellowed in anger. The whole cabin of rookies fell into dead silence. They are just students. Even their well-experienced senior got trapped by the interrupter. It will only be a vain sacrifice for them to help. What are we going to do? We're gonna die. Look at those zombies. Oh God. We're gonna be eaten by them. Meanwhile, Sean's nearly has his left cheek squash up against the window due to the imbalance of the aircraft. His felt a shudder down his spine when his gaze met the eyes of the zombies that are filled with thirst. They crawl along as the aircraft advance staggeredly. Sean could see themselves going through the raving invasion in their blood-lusting jaws once the aircraft crashes. With a clench of his teeth, Sean took off his safety equipment. Sean! Where are you going? Lily shouted loudly. Sean clambered forward, clutching onto the rows of armrest one at a time until he reached the door leading to the cockpit. Sean, someone has to go. I would rather be trapped in my own brain is better than to be devoured alive. Captain, this is Sean. I'm here to take over from Captain John. Please open the door. The moment Sean entered the cockpit, he was stunned. The main system was almost circling in 360 degrees, the red light on the left is flashing in warning, and there sat Captain John with his head tilted to the side lifelessly. The data in the connecting device worn on his head was in total disorder. Sean disconnected Captain John from the system by force and shoved him out from the cockpit. I can't hold on any longer, kid. Sean understands they have no time to waste, the aircraft is going down and the zombies chasing from behind was about to pounce onto the aircraft. There's no chance for him to hesitate. He put on the connecting device, his mind was instantly connected to the main system and began processing the data. Without any words, the AI system reacts according to his flow of thoughts. Millions of data flow into his brain like waves and swirling within like the wind. Sean would have been overwhelmed by this amount of information if he had not experienced the same pressure he felt during the simulation test. The red warning on the left wing was removed as the aircraft gradually regained its balance and soared into the air right before the zombies could reach them. The apprentices in the cabin let out a sigh of relief. Autopilot is activated, and they are back on their original flight route, gradually advancing towards the research base. It was a remarkable experience for Sean. The data and knowledge that were scattered around his mind like fine sand have now been materialized through a chassis, turning into a flowing substance that seems touchable in his mind, constantly flowing within channels of thoughts and finally converging to the pith that lies deep within. Without warning, the voice of his senior rang in his ears. I'm sorry. I'm at my limits. The sound of alarm went off once again as the aircraft began slanting towards the right and plunging downwards in great speed. Captain! Captain, warning! Warning! Engine failure on the right wing. Sean shut his eyes and skimmed through the sea of data, in hope to find a way to pilot the aircraft with just the left engine, but to no avail. We won't have the time to get someone out there to take over from Captain willingly. Why does the aircraft have to be dual piloted? Sean gritted his teeth in anxiety, he knows that's a safety precaution. Dual piloting system was established as a safety measure when one pilot has been infiltrated by the interrupter, the other one could still continue piloting. Another option was to switch back to hands-on control, but now that the system is malfunctioned, this option is no longer available. Do you wish to activate single piloting system? The main system prompted. Sean's brain replied automatically, yes. In the next second, he felt a strong sense of oppression strike the depth of his mind. The immense flow of information made Sean felt as though his head were about to split apart. This is a research aircraft. If it was a normal terminal flight system, the aircraft would have been easily hacked in by the interrupter. Only the ever-changing human brain could overcome the drawback of terminal flight system that can be easily reprogrammed. The aircraft is only a few meters away from the ground. Shrieks and yells sounded from behind as the bulkhead crushed some of the zombies in pursuit. Brown and yellowish mucus splattered across the aircraft window as their bodies were pulped into pieces. Seconds before they touched the ground, the right engine came to life all of a sudden. The aircraft staggered as it attempts to elevate higher, plunging into the trees and chopping them into halves before soaring into the sky. Sean was covered in cold sweat. They're still 15 minutes away from the research base. Within the cabin, Lily covered her mouth feeling nauseous. Those putrid bodies splattered across the bulkhead, too battered to imagine it was once a human figure. The others had their eyes closed and rest their head against their seats. It was a first for some of them to have a close look at the zombies, whereas some were reliving their nightmares. Just as Sean breathed out a sigh of relief, He felt a sudden propel on his mental fortress was accompanied by an intense pain. The interrupter. His heart was racing. I can't give up now. We're 12 minutes away from the base. I have to hold on. The dual system was already stressing him out, yet at the same time, Sean's mind was continuously disrupted by the interrupter. Recollecting and reforming his string of thoughts that were destroyed, he had to force himself to think faster, straining his brain to the extent, as the speed of destruction increases. He altered the calculation function of the terminal while finding a possible way to maintain the processing of his brain. This is battle. He has to predict the block the opponent wishes to destroy before it happens and strengthen that part of his mind in defense. 11 minutes to the base, the system prompted. The 1 minute past felt like a century. Meanwhile, a solemn voice of a woman sounded, "This is the research base 2, pilot, please state your ID. Sean. ID 1665. We've encountered the interrupter. The dual system was overloaded. In the base 2 control room, the liaison officer contacted the person in charge immediately. Colonel Shen Bing. Colonel, this is liaison officer from line 1, report for an emergency. The aircraft K388, departed from base 14 to our base has now been single piloted and the pilot is not Captain John and Captain Din. Who's the pilot? It's an apprentice from the Central Science Academy, Sean, ID 1665. Is he on the passenger list then? Yes. They've encountered the interrupter? Yes. Sean is now operating both engine systems alone. If the entrance to the base is permitted, should we send in technical reinforcements? A puny little apprentice, capable of controlling both engine systems, while defending the infiltration of the interrupter at the same time. I do not see the need for reinforcement, or in fact, why do I have the feeling that no one here has the capability to reinforce him? Check the processing speed of his brain within the accessing terminal. 3 seconds after, the liaison officer stuttered, Colonel. T3 trillion megahertz. There was a waver in Colonel Shen Bing's eyes. Connect me to Sean. Meanwhile, Sean was mentally strained and was gritting his teeth in agony. The speed and knowledge possessed by the interrupter were beyond his expectation, as his mental fortresses continued to collapse one layer after another. Hello Sean, I'm Colonel Shen Bing, the commander of Base 2, Colonel. I can't hold on any longer. Please my apologies, but it is still incapable of me to send in any technical reinforcements for support at the moment. Shen Bing said plainly, as though what Sean is facing now is just a piece of cake. Colonel. You've got to be kidding. There are 2 mentally entrapped captains and 12 apprentices on this aircraft. Sean was furious. Immediately, the interrupter took his emotional instability as an opportunity and infiltrate into his subconscious level. Sean turned to defend almost at the same time he felt the opponent's attack. He would have ended up like the 2 seniors for he had reacted a second late. The technical reinforcement mentioned is to have a third person surfing into a terminal and take Sean's place in controlling the systems from afar, as well as helping him to fend away infiltration. Calm down, Sean. Once we provide you any technical reinforcements, the interrupter that hacked into your brain will notice for sure. As long as you could hold on until you enter the base, we will sever the terminal connection immediately and a part of the opponent's data will be left in your brain. And that will be a valuable resource for us to know more about the Tides organization. What if I failed? You'll crash. Because we're just students, so our lives mean nothing to you, is it? Sean questioned through his teeth. The 2 words "you'll crash" left his mouth so blatantly. He better not let me have the chance to see him or I'm definitely gonna punch him so hard in his face. Well, I'm not certain about the others but based on your brain power and terminal processing speed, you are a very precious resource to us. Resource? I'm a freaking living human being. Although Sean is yet to be a real soldier, he could imagine the ruthlessness and hypocrisy of the military. Which is why Sean couldn't be bothered to put the effort in obtaining an A-class grading in order to enter the military main division like everyone else. He sees all of it as a pool of quagmire. He's going to die for dealing with these hypocrites every single day. Listen, although all forms of thoughts will be materialized through the terminal system, it all depends on how you think and form in your mind. Bullshit. Even a kindergartner knows that. The way you form your thoughts will determine how you will be decimated by the interrupter. With that said, Shen Bing was disconnected. Sean nearly went rampant. That was a freaking hint for him? I'm gonna die. That cold-blooded lunatic. Sean was awfully stressed out from the endless process of reforming and demolishing of the garrisons in his brain. In the end, he let off all the defending walls that he has created. The whole chassis crumbled, while he began imagining himself hovering high up in the air, looking down upon a forest. The green spread towards the horizon, whispering to each other in the wind. All of a sudden, seedlings began to sprout conspicuously between the tree veins, whilst in the next minute, a blaze of fire encircled the soaring trees and turning them into a firestorm in seconds. Subsequently, the blaze was engulfed by a gigantic wave, turning the land, the world, into an ocean. Sean disassembled all the information, dispersing them to every corner of his mind and keeping track of their structure in his own unique way so that he could retrieve, converge and have them sent out any time he wants in the deep ocean. In just seconds, all the data were out of their ordinary order after a disturbance in the sea water. Thus, Sean was forced to trail after the info he needs, while with the interrupter chasing close behind his back. Every minute, every second, was a calamity. In the meantime, Shen Bing was standing within the control center, staring at the approaching aircraft with his arms folded. "Open the base hatch." "Yes, Colonel." The liaison officer did as she was told and looked at the continuously lowering aircraft in concern. As expected, the height of the aircraft has fallen below the parallel line of the open hatch. "Colonel?" The liaison officer turned back. "They still have a chance to save them if they provide their reinforcements now." Just a moment, Shen Bing narrowed his eyes. 40 meters. 30 meters. The aircraft continues to fall. "Colonel." The liaison officer turned back once again. "She's a soldier, and the people struggling with their lives out there are her comrades." There was an upturn on the corner of Shen Bing's mouth. The officer turned around to have a look at the screen, only to see the aircraft that was diving down to its end seconds ago, soaring up in an almost perpendicular manner, and when it's less than 5 meters away, it regained parallel with the hatch and zoomed into the aircraft passageway. "Cut off all data transfer, enter the isolated mode," Shen Bing gave orders. "Roger." As darkness falls, every apprentice in the cabin has their eyes shut tight, bracing for their last moment. From the perpendicular flight to the abrupt landing, all seems to happen in an instant. Why is it all dark in here? Did we crash? What's happening? Where on earth are we? Lily tried to push off her safety equipment but it won't even budge, which means that the aircraft has lost all its electric power. "Sean! Sean!" Lily began yelling. The light above them lit up suddenly, and all of them squint their eyes to the sudden brightness. As they are getting used to the light, they heard the cabin door open. Several officers stood by the cabin door, leading is a man in his late 20s, with a neat black short hair and a cold piercing gaze that made the students shudder in anxiousness. "I'm the commander of Base 2, Colonel Shen Bing." With that, Shen Bing gave a perfect salute to the shaken apprentices, and before they come to their senses, Shen Bing signaled with a lift of his chin as two officers with a major epaulet open the door to the cockpit and connect to the terminal. Lily had a clear view of Sean sitting on the pilot's seat with his head lowered, still had the terminal connector equipped. And clearly, the terminal that the two officers are connecting to is not the aircraft's terminal but to Sean's brain. "What are you trying to do? What's wrong with Sean?" She tried to rush over but was blocked off by another officer standing by the door. Shen Bing glanced at Lily and gave a disdainful humph. "Welcome to Base 2, I believe it's been a long day for all of you. There will be a feast for you tonight, I hope you have a good time." Lily and all the apprentices were forced out from the cabin. Before Lily could protest, the person beside her held her back. "That's Shen Bing. We have to follow his orders." Shen Bing is the military research team elite amongst the Charles expatriates. He has been conducting external researches for almost 6 years, issued numbers of priceless research reports, and currently, the military is having plans to raise him to the title of Major General. In front of a personage like him, an apprentice like them means nothing. No one would raise a brow even if Shen Bing tosses them off the base to feed the zombies. Captain John and Captain Din were lifted off the aircraft. Shen Bing's secretarial officer came to his side and murmured by his ear, "Colonel, we need someone with experiences on the interrupters to help them regain their normal cognition." Shen Bing gave a quiet sigh. "So, you're saying I have to do it myself?" The secretarial officer paused for a moment but nodded in the end. "I'm not entering anyone else's mind anymore. The subconscious of human is a terrifying place." Shen Bing leaned against the door, staring at Sean's side profile. "How's the information retrieval going?" Every tracks and information the interrupter left in his brain have been successfully retrieved. "What about him? When will he wake up?" "His brain power has been overloaded from data processing." "All right, the cause is apparent, what I want is the conclusion," Shen Bing interrupted in frustration. "His conscious is now in the state of self-protection. Unless someone enters his mental conscious to assure him he's now safe, otherwise, he won't be waking up." Shen Bing snorted. "So by the end of the day, this fellow was trapped by himself?" "Yes. Still a rookie after all." "Colonel. At least Sean has helped us obtain this valuable information, could you?" The secretarial officer suggested once again but swallowed back his words halfway when he saw Shen Bing's look. I said, I will not enter anyone else's mind ever again. If there really isn't a way, leave him be and wait until we send him back to Charles, there will be tons of elites there to wake him up. Leaving those words behind, Shen Bing turned around and left.